Good morning. How is everyone? This is Friday morning, and we are going to talk today a little bit about the great pause. I've heard a couple of different commentaries or been reading a lot about people who are trying to make sense of everything that's going on. And it's interesting to me that how they are referring to this time when we've been staying at home. Oh, Bonnie, I'm glad you like the music. Wynton Marsalis, a trumpeter. Um, anyway, I wanted to start out today just kind of as I said, I know that people are talking about getting back, to normal, which I really truly believe is not going to happen. We're not going to go back the way we were. So this is a really good time for us to be pondering um, what would we like normal to be instead of, let's get back to normal. What does that really mean? I was talking to, oh, Brenda, and it's snowing. My husband will be so pleased. Um, but getting back to when we talk about getting back to normal, what what does that mean? I mean, obviously, it means not being afraid and being able to come and go as we please and that sort of thing. But I think that really deeper is that what is it that you will do? I mean, if they did flip a switch and say, okay, tomorrow morning when you wake up, go back to normal. Um, some people have lost jobs. Some people have, you know, the businesses they worked at have closed, or the businesses that they frequent have closed. So, really, what are the normal things that you really miss? And I'm sure that's different if you live alone or just with a spouse. Or if you have family, then obviously there's going to be wants and needs of people who want to go do stuff that they haven't been able to do. um, but anyway, I've been thinking about this, the phrase that someone said, the great pause, and I really like that, um, especially because it's kind of, let's see, the word I want to use, liturgical or theological, the idea of seasons, the idea of fallow time or Sabbath time, um, that this in essence for most of us has been truly an inconvenience with obviously added anxiety. I don't want to diminish what's going on, but for most of the people that we all know, and luckily I haven't heard of anyone being sick in the congregation, um, this is a great pause, a great pause. And so, what are you doing in the midst of this Sabbath time that has been given? I was thinking about that, and um, the story from Joshua came to my mind, and this is one of those stories that you don't hear in church very often, if ever. A story about the day that Joshua told the sun to stop. And there's all kinds of, if you want to Google that, there's all kinds of scholarly things about what happened when the sun stopped, and was it an eclipse, or was it a this or a that or that. But it was in the midst of a huge battle that Joshua was waging with the land, with the people of the promised land. And it's odd because when you read through the book of Joshua, and of course he fits the Battle of Jericho, and everybody's like, yay, now he can go because Jericho was the gateway to the west, which was the promised land. But then he basically, God told him to go clean out everybody who was living there in the promised land. And it's one story after another of how God assisted Joshua in defeating enemies, killing thousands of people, and and God participating in that battle. So it's really kind of an interesting story. But in the middle of that story, let me just read. This is in Joshua 10, just a couple of chapters. As they fled before Israel while they were going down the slope of Beth Horon, the Lord threw down huge stones from heaven on them as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died because of the hailstones than the Israelites killed with the sword. On that day, when the Lord gave the Amorites over to the Israelites, Joshua spoke to the Lord, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, until the nation took vengeance on their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jashar, that the sun stopped in mid-heaven and did not hurry to set for about a whole day? There has been no day like it before or since, when the Lord heeded a human voice, for the Lord fought for Israel. So there we have that curious little story from Joshua about the sun standing still, which the writers took probably a natural event like an eclipse, um, and turned it into a good story about how God listened to Joshua and how Joshua's life had the imprint of God upon it. But it makes me wonder what people thought at that time about that great pause. The sun stopped, the moon stopped. Um, they didn't know how long it was going to last, they didn't know what it meant. Um, and my goodness, there's a little bit of a parallel there going on with us. And we don't really know what's going on. We don't know how long it's going to last. Um, and so we sit and we wait. And luckily, we are people of Advent, and so we know uh, what waiting is about. We have been practicing that most of our lives as we mark the season of Advent, waiting for the birth of Christ and the coming of Christ. So here's the thing: as we're living in this great pause, I am also reminded of stories that my parents told me, and many of you are of an age that remember parents who experienced the Depression in the late 30s and early 40s, and then immediately followed by World War II. Can you even imagine, as the Depression was raging, um, what was going on with people losing jobs and having to change their situations and everything? And just when it looks like, they've gritted their way through that, then here comes World War II. Um, so that's one kind of sad or depressing thing to look at, that following this great pause, there may be even greater challenges for us. But as people of hope and people of Advent who know how to wait, this is a time, I think, of great renewal. Um, I think people who have children maybe not have the quiet time and reflection that some of us older folks do, because we don't have to take care of that, and of our little darlings. But we have a little more time to just kind of reflect on what this means to us. I've kidded before that the Great Depression, I grew up as a Depression child, even though I wasn't there when it happened. My parents lived their lives, and I'm sure many of yours did the same, as if tomorrow the other shoe could drop. My parents saved fastidiously in the event that something would happen. They had money set aside so that they would be okay. My father honed skills that were beyond his chemical engineering skills, and my mother tried to keep herself up to date because she was a teacher, but wondering if there would ever be a time when they would be without again. The fun stuff about that was they saved things like Reynolds wrap. You know, you washed it and folded it up and used it again. They recycled everything. Um, my father's workbench was a sight to behold. When I cleaned out their house, he had every screw and every widget and every doorknob, or, just in case. He had, backup coffee pots and backup, you know. But it was just, the point was, they lived their lives as people who cared about their resources, who were not just assured that the things that they consumed regularly would always be there. My favorite one is, if those of you who remember metal tinsel from the tree, the Christmas tree, we used to take it off every year and smooth it out and wrap it in paper towels and keep it for the next year, because why throw it away? It's perfectly good tinsel. So are we doing that? I mean, some of us, we try to think about being ecologically sound and recycle whenever we can. um, but it pains me to look at how many people really truly live paycheck to paycheck, and when that paycheck disappears, life as they know it disappears. So um, I wonder what people will do as far as how their attitudes will change. I wonder what will happen with things like credit cards once we get on the other side of people who are having to pay for everything now on credit. Um, will they stop doing that? Will we become more of a cash based society again? Um, Not necessarily that we have to actually have the cash, but pay as you go, not pay for the future. I also wonder what will happen with religion and with faith and how people practice their faith. We're talking about that a lot now at church, the pastors and the council. What's it going to look like when we return, and how will we decide when we return? What will that be like? I believe that we will continue to provide online worship resources for those who can't or won't come to the church building and be part of that. So that's your thing. But in in the whole in the whole midst of the great pause, I really truly do believe that God is um, working the soil, working the seed, um, the Spirit breathing on all of us so that we will grow in new ways that we never thought or ever even imagined, things that we would do and learn during this time. Um, so, so think about that. I'm sure most of you already are, but it would be interesting to hear some comments from some of you younger folks who have children in the home. How, I am convinced that our grandchildren will look back on this time as a gift, where they get to spend all their time with their parents home all the time. And wasn't that really what most of us grew up with? At least one of our parents was home most of the time. So, so there are things to be seen here. There are hopes. There are signs of hope. There are signs of God's love everywhere. Nature is such a wonderful teacher, and I do hope that you are every day getting out to just breathe in the fresher air, listen to the silence, to be aware of all of those things that we have unfortunately taken for granted for so many years. Um, and think about consumption. Think about our footprint. Think about how your life can become better when we finish this great pause and move out into a new world in new ways, but always making sure that we have the hope that God is present with us. So I hope that you enjoy your day. I hope that you take every moment that you have to take care of yourself. It is not selfish to take care of yourself, to nap, to binge on television, to read 1,000 good books, to let your brains fall out while you do a puzzle. All those simple pleasures that we are learning about once again. God bless you on your day. I will see you, well, I won't see you, but you will see me on Sunday and then again next week. So once again, I invite you, if you have themes that you would like me to reflect upon, I would be happy to do that, especially whereas I can connect those themes with scripture so that you have a scripture passage every morning and then some thoughts. So have a wonderful day. Enjoy the world around you. Enjoy those who you love, who are near you. Please know that I still, as always, love you and miss you, and we will see you again soon. Go play in the snow.